cheapest 3070s you can buy. This is from a brand that I haven't recognized, and it has some very interesting people talking about very similar cards. You've got some stuff that does kind of compare close. You've got a sale going on from Gigabyte. You've got maybe some other stuff, some one-time deal, but this is a, $399 card, which at the time is the cheapest one I can really find. I'm sure that you might be able to catch one on a sale, but this one's been at this price consistently. So this 3070 is made by a company called 51 Risc. We're going to go ahead and get one. And it's advertised pretty much as expected. Notice that the video that this guy talks about, this card here, the TIM, is not available anywhere. So I'm interested to see, given that person's experience, what are their comments here? A pretty decent amount of ratings in the last 12 months. So it's not anything crazy. You can see some of the reviews here. Also, a lot of the reviews here, basically, some of them are pretty bad. Some of them saying stuff didn't arrive. So I'm going to go ahead and get my hands on one. Go ahead and get my hands on one and get one of the 3070s. The big thing that I'm going to be curious to know is this just a regular 3070, or is this something that maybe is a repeat of a similar situation? This also does look like a cheaper end cooler. So I'll be interested to know if there are thermal problems or noise problems, especially because it looks very similar to, say, like a scam or fake 1050 Ti that we saw on Wish like a couple years ago. That cooler looks similar. It's very probable this is a viable product. The reason why I say that specifically is we still have the correct DisplayPort headers, so I wouldn't be too worried. Everything in here checks out. This has the correct number of CUDA cores, correct number of display ports. Interestingly enough, from a lot of the cards is you're looking at from Asus Gaming, a lot of them are maxing out at 1725, and so this one even gets a little slightly higher boost clock. I will be interested to see exactly like what's going on there. Is there any reviews on this? There's 0 reviews. Everything in here checks out. That the specs look relatively like pretty much accurate. I don't see anything, and this was something that was available on March 3rd. So it looks like this is also the nicest card you can buy with them. So I'm going to be very interested to see what shows up in the mail. So I'm going to go ahead and get this. And so I have the 51 Risc graphics card here, and we're going to check it out. Now keep in mind this is the 3070 here, and as you can see on the side here, 3070, 8GB DDR6, and it's GDDR6. A little curious by that one. But yeah, we have a serial number. We have everything on here. Nothing crazy. I guess for the cheapest graphics card, cheapest 3070 in the world, you get a paper box, which honestly, for me, the packaging isn't the big deal. I could care less. Here's the card itself. It does not look like it comes with any drivers of any kind. So you're basically at least nothing in the box, which I think this is packaged more than adequately. So I'm not really getting the vibe that I feel like this was going to get damaged anyway. I'm a little curious about the driver situation, but I should just be able to download the standard ones from Nvidia. Let's open this sucker up and take a look at the card. So currently for a new 3070, you're looking at about $500. And the first thing that strikes me really is the fact that this is all plastic. There is no metal, which again is not necessarily bad given the price. I mean, this is like $200 cheaper than basically what you'd get with like any other 3070. So I don't see anything too crazy. This cooler does feel a little smaller than what I'm used to. A lot of the 3070s are, larger multi-fan cards, but this is also, not anything crazy. I don't see anything here that really sticks out at me at have any points of concern. I mean, yeah, you got your standard pin connectors. It's a 3070. It feels a little cheap, but also the plastic looks kind of cool. It's got like this pearl kind of shading, silvery kind of look, which, as I said, for a cheap graphics card, given the price, you're not paying for a fancy case or decoration or boxing or You're not paying for a fancy shroud or cooler. You're paying hopefully for that chip that's on here. And it looks like there's everything, like there's thermal pads on the bottom here. There's everything that you really need. So I don't see anything too crazy, anything too out of the ordinary as well. It looks like a cheaper version of a 3070. So I've got no complaints so far. So next task to do is just to throw it in the system, get it booted, and see kind of what kind of information and stuff we get out of it. But overall, yeah, looks so fun. So the initial experience was not too complicated. I at least did get like video output straight away when I plugged this in. It took a little while for the drivers to work, and that seems like everything was going great. And then I had like a good solid, maybe like hour. I couldn't get the system to boot up at all. I tried like wiggling the connector and things like that. And I was eventually able to get it to boot again. I reinstalled the drivers, but it's been very touch and go. So going forward, I think there's a couple tests I want to perform. Let's load up CPU-Z and actually see what the die is, where it's from, who makes it, or what this was really intended to be. Also, let's check the fans, the cooler, all that stuff to see how hot this gets, how loud this gets, because I'm curious, especially with, I want to say this really does feel like a Wish.com CPU cooler of how small it is, especially when you look at the triple fan graphics cards. This is really small. So I'm going to be really interested to see what this actually looks like in terms of cooling it and basically how loud it gets, because I have a feeling this might actually have to crank up pretty high to keep this cool. So for the loudness of this, I basically downloaded MSI Afterburner. It was interesting on how much it was restricted in that. But for the most part, I cranked up the fans all the way to the maximum because I was curious on what that would sound like. And it sounded pretty much exactly like what I expected, which is honestly probably better than the alternative, which is it didn't sound loud, and in that case, the fans aren't really doing a good job. So I think overall in that regard, the cooler, we're going to do some thermal testing in a second, but at least seems that the cooler is able to at least put it through a good bit of air. Obviously, the air blowing both that way and that way is going to be interesting. It's really like the Wish.com cards in terms of cooling, so I'm interested to see how effective that really is. So interestingly enough, the GPU temperature is not actually that crazy. 30 degrees Celsius, which is actually pretty solid. Not too loud. Idling. So actually looks pretty good in terms of how well it's working, at least idle. Let's crank up the thermal test now. And it's stabilized around 69 degrees. And it's pretty loud, but to be honest with you, that's pretty impressive. So 69 degrees for an open case setup on a GPU that small. Maybe there is something to the cooler after all. Let's load up GPU-Z, which is a way to kind of see what the silicon die is on the graphics card. And as you can see, this is nothing weird. It looks like this was pretty much a bone stock 3070. It's the same with the one that they end up using in the 3070 Founders Editions. And so it looks like this is a real, genuine graphics card that probably was bought from like a surplus. One of these companies probably had a surplus of them and probably just bought them. And that's what a lot of these kind of smaller graphics card manufacturers do. They just buy and then kind of repackage them. I don't particularly see any major objections to it other than my weird experiences with Post, but it seems like it's a genuine, real 3070. My experiences as a content creator are just one. And obviously, I don't have the ability to go out and get hundreds of these to test, wide batches. But also, for the people that do have issues, for the other creators with the 3070 Ti, obviously he had a really different experience. And I would be interested to know, obviously since that happened, that card is no longer available. So this experience seems to be really positive. And I would always caution you if you feel like you got something that you were questionable about, or you feel like you didn't get what you were supposed to, exercise your right to return things. Like, there's nothing wrong with returning something that you feel like you didn't get. So this card seems to be pretty decent, has no reviews online, so I'll be interested to see kind
kind of what people have to say or what people talk about in the comments too if they go through and choose to purchase this as well. But overall, I don't really have any issues with it other than a little bit of instability. But after that like quick little blip, I haven't had any other issues. So thank you very much for watching. Check out the channel for other cool tech-related reviews, investigations of products, and I hope to see you guys around soon. Consider subscribing.